community. It's a community that understands socialism, the evils of socialism. It's a community that understands that this is the greatest country in the history of humanity, but we got to keep it that way. And what we've seen in Florida is a transformation of Hispanics, non-Hispanics, everybody in this state realizing what now I think most of America has realized, that the politics of the left have been destructive, that the politics of the Democrats do not work, that they bring disaster, they bring poverty, they bring insecurity, and they don't bring prosperity. And so Florida, I think, and South Florida is a great example of that. And let me just, take you back a few years. I don't want to age myself. But 1994, Florida was known as, #1 in violent crime in the country. Yes, Florida. The state legislature raised taxes every single year. And it was rated as not a great place to own a business or to start a new business. And what happened? That for the first time in 122 consecutive years of Democratic control in the state legislature, just the Florida Senate flipped, and Florida's never looked back again. Florida, the people of Florida saved themselves, and now we are known as the free state of Florida, the prosperous, secure, wonderful place to do business, to raise a family, a place where the world wants to come to not only vacation, but to live, and the world and the country wants to emulate. And that is because of Republican leadership. And the Hispanic community in this state has been learning that time and time again. Ronald Reagan used to say that Hispanics are Republicans, they just don't know it. Well, guess what? In Florida, they know it. And they are voting that way, they are acting that way, which is why this is no longer a swing state. But anyways, to all of you, welcome. Welcome. I am under the weather because I, like you, were out in that miserable weather in D.C. Last week. It's great to be home. I welcome each and every one of you, and Mr. Speaker, to you and the leadership team and to my colleagues. I hope you know what a profound honor it is to have, obviously, the President of the United States here, but this is, in essence, his second hometown, but also have you and this group of leaders here to solve America's issues together and get the America First agenda turn into reality. So thank you for being here. It's a privilege to welcome you to the great city of Doral.
Thank you, my friend. Well, thank you, Mario. Thanks for hosting us, and thanks to all of you. Oh, that's fine. I put it right here. We're so grateful to be here. It's good to be out of D.C. and to be in the free state of Florida, as was noted. I'm a little under the weather as well. I think we all are. It was a long inaugural week, and then right after that, feel my pain, we had Louisiana's annual Washington Mardi Gras celebration right on the heels. So 4 more days of that. My poor wife was drugged to, I think, 9 balls in a week, and we're still recovering. But we're glad to be here and really, really grateful that the new golden age of America has begun. It is an exciting time in the country. You've all felt it. Those of you who came from Washington, you know that something has changed. The atmosphere has changed in Washington, and we're feeling that around the country. I came down to Florida a day early and was meeting with friends of the party and donors and folks in South Florida, and they feel it here, as Mario said, just as we do all around the country. Something has changed because there's a new sheriff in town. And we're excited because we have unified government. We have President Trump back in the White House. The meetings began, the work began the day after inauguration. I was summoned there early in the morning on Tuesday and met Vice President J.D. Vance there and Leader John Thune in the Senate, my counterpart, and we went to work immediately, went to the Oval Office and sat with the President for hours, brought in our leadership teams who worked so hard to achieve this moment that we have now, unifying government to fix the country. And all that work has begun in earnest. We did leave it all on the field. This leadership team and all the House Republicans worked so hard to ensure that we kept our majority in the House. We believed that we would get the majority in the Senate, and we did. And we believed we would return President Trump back to the White House, and it happened. But we did, we all traveled endlessly, worked endlessly. I personally did over 350 campaign events in 250 cities in 40 states and logged enough miles to circle the globe 5.5 times. I keep saying that because I can't believe it myself, but that's what was necessary. And we got the job done. And so now we have to deliver on this agenda. Everything has changed. You've seen that the president has accomplished more in his first week in office than Joe Biden did for the American people in 4 years. And everyone's talking about it. The Democratic Party is in disarray. They have no obvious leader. They have no obvious vision or agenda. Their platform has to be rewritten whole cloth, and they don't exactly know how they're going to wander in this wilderness for the next couple of years. It's not just going to be a couple of years, though. It's going to be 4 years at least, and then more, because we are going to grow the House majority in 2026. Historically, when the president takes the Oval Office, then his party then loses, on average, a number of seats in the House in that first midterm. That won't happen this time around because there's been a sea change. And we're going to deliver on this agenda, and that begins now. And so we're here for 3 days here at Doral International, President Trump's beautiful club here. I hope you all enjoy the time. We're going to be working the whole time. We won't get to enjoy much of it, but that's by design. We'll be in these long sessions with the House Republicans working through the agenda. You all heard me talk about the proverbial playbook that we developed over the last year leading up to this moment that we knew would happen. And now we're working out the final sequence of the plays. And so some big decisions will be made here in the next few days, and we'll align with the Senate and our colleagues there, and we will move forward on that agenda. The reconciliation process, the appropriations that we have to wrap up, and the other issues that are upon us. So all the Republicans are rolling their sleeves up. There is a lot of work being done. There has been a lot of work done behind the scenes up to lead us to this point, and we are really excited to deliver for the American people, and we will. Lots happening. The most recently, I'm sure there'll be a question or two about Colombia, the last events of the last 24, 36 hours. I think that was a signal. When the president engaged with the president of Colombia about the situation there, Colombia did an about face, and they decided they would indeed cooperate and take back their citizens who came here illegally. Violent criminals from other nations will be the first to be deported, and countries must participate. And as soon as Colombia pushed back against the White House, I went immediately to social media. I was here in Florida meeting with donors and party officials, and stepped out of that meeting and said, the Congress will back up the White House, and we will move as necessary on any country. This was a message to Colombia and anyone else. You have to participate. You have to take back the illegals who came here that come from your country. And if not, then we will act and we will engage with sanctions or any other measures that are appropriate to back up the president's agenda. That's what the American people demand and deserve. We are going to secure that border. We are going to make America safe and secure again, and the Congress will have no daylight between us and the White House on that issue. So every nation around the world needs to hear us loud and clearly. This is not a game. We're going to take care of the American people, and that America First agenda begins there. So we'll take a few questions and whatever you got. Manu, front row, sorry, go ahead.
One of the big things you're going to deal with is aid for California.
Mm-hmm.
The president said on Friday that he would insist on voter ID as a condition for aid to California. Is that going to be a red line for you? Would you insist on voter ID in exchange for aid to California?
Yeah, we've got to work out the details of that. I have not spoken to the president about that issue since he said that. He'll be here tonight, of course, for dinner with us, and that's one of the topics of discussion. Listen, there are a lot of issues going on in California, and we have been lamenting the lack of voter security there for some time, election security. We were deeply concerned about it in this last election cycle, and we saw 3 of our seats frankly slip away from us in the weeks that it took to continue counting ballots in California when seemingly every other state and nation in America can get it done. It's inexcusable. Gavin Newsom provides, I think, such a lack of leadership there in so many ways, and it was highlighted by the disaster with the fires. It's so heartbreaking that California citizens are suffering because of the lack of state and local leadership on those issues. They did not manage the forest well. They did not manage the water well. And everyone knew for decades that the eventuality that we've seen over the last couple of weeks here since the fire disasters began was foreseeable. They assumed the risk because of their crazy far-left policies. So we've talked about conditioning the aid that will go there to policy changes. I think that is a common sense notion that is supported by the vast majority of the American people who do not want to subsidize crazy California leftist policies that are dangerous for people. And now what the terms are and the details of that we will be working out. But entwined in all of that is the concern about election security in California. And voter ID is a matter that, again, comports with common sense that most American people see the value in. And it's be something we'll be trying to advance. Over here, yes.
Two questions. Do you see President Trump negotiating with Maduro, or Maduro will not have the opportunity to negotiate negotiate or rather accept the terms in regard of the migrants? And the second question is whether this conversation with Bukele means that the president of El Salvador is going to receive members of Tren de Aragua TVA expelled from the United States in his prisons.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure. I'm not going to get ahead of the president with regard to negotiations with Venezuela or El Salvador or any other country. I will just say that we will be dealing with this in the same manner that we did with Colombia, and that is every nation around the world that, Venezuela is a good example. I mean, President Trump noted that they opened their prisons and sent very dangerous persons to the U.S. That is not acceptable. We should never have allowed it here. The Biden administration and Mayorkas opened the border wide and subjected the American people to all of these terrible it's a humanitarian catastrophe and a violent problem, a violent crisis for the American people, and it must be addressed. And so President Trump you've seen, he will have a heavy hand, and we will support him on that regardless of who stands up against it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's been a busy week, as I said before, with President Trump. We've seen him fire some inspectors general today, and also he's made comments and an executive order about FEMA, saying that perhaps it shouldn't even exist. Can you comment on the idea that states should do more, and do you think FEMA should exist? And the inspectors general, is that a legal action, and is it a good one?
So I have some expertise with FEMA. I'm from Louisiana. We're a disaster-prone state, as is Florida, and we have a lot of experience with that. In my experience, it is very often the case that local workers, people who are working through FEMA, do a pretty good job, but often it's the leadership at the top that can affect the outcome of how a disaster is handled. There's been a lot of frustration, of course, over the last 4 years with how FEMA has been handled, and I think the president is right to assess that. I think we are entering a new era of government, and that is when the president says he wants to make the government more efficient and effective, and we say we want to limit the size and scope of government, it means that everything is on the table for reevaluation. This is a new moment for us to reevaluate everything that the federal government does. And FEMA is in the crosshairs, pardon the expression, because they're in the microscope, because these disasters are front and center for the country to review. And so I think that the task force that the president set up by the executive order is an appropriate step. I think that it's probably long overdue. It'll be a 6-month, 180-day evaluation with some very smart people in the room that have a lot of expertise and experience in dealing with FEMA. And I very much look forward to the outcome of that issue. I will tell you from my perspective, state of Louisiana, again, having a lot of experience with this, we have the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, we call it GOSEP, and they do an extraordinary job on a state level. They're very responsive to the people, and our people are very resilient, and they look to the state officials to handle that. FEMA has been a partner, but they probably could be a better partner. So we're going to withhold the final judgment on what the analysis is from that group, but I think the timing for that is important, and we support the president's initiative, obviously 100%, and we'll assist from the House Republicans in any way that we can to contribute to that effort. With regard to the inspectors general, the president my understanding is he will be replacing those positions with new persons. And sometimes you need a fresh look. Look, we want to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse in every way possible. The president's committed to that, and we are as well. The inspector generals, when they are working on all cylinders and to their top level of effectiveness, they can be a huge part of that. I think the president appreciates that, but sometimes you have to begin a new page and start with a fresh start. And I think maybe some new eyes, new voices will be appropriate at this time. Scott.
Thank you very much. With these roundups and with deportations that we're seeing in places like Chicago and around the country, are you concerned at all that there's a negative impact or unintended consequences as a result, specifically for folks like construction workers, people who are working in hotels, restaurants, people who sort of are the backbone of the economy that may be fearful to show up at work? Is that undermining the U.S. economy in any way?
I hope not. I don't think so. I think you heard Tom Homan say very clearly in the last 24 hours, the worst are first, and what he means by that is dangerous, violent criminals, and we know who they are. You've already seen them being rounded up and deported. That is the top and first priority of the federal government. The rest of it will be developed. I'm glad that we have a new Secretary of Homeland Security. I think Kristi Noem will do an extraordinary job in that position, and all the people that are being lined up have a very sober mind about this. They're very clear-eyed about what is required, what the American people demand and deserve, and frankly, what they voted for in the election. They gave President Donald Trump a mandate to fix this problem. And no matter where I went around the country, border ranked in the top 1 or 2 issues everywhere, blue states, red state, everywhere in between. And so they are counting on us, they're counting on the administration and the Congress, for that matter, to back it up, to get control of this situation. And that's what's going to happen. And I think everybody can take a deep breath, let this play out. We are going to restore law and order at any cost, and I think we owe that to the people. It's a very, very simple thing. Jake.
Last question, guys. Is it still your goal to have a budget through both chambers by February 24th?
Yes. When we get back, the Budget Committee will be marking up, first week of February is the plan, marking up the budget to set the resolution to begin and unlock and open the reconciliation process. That will be where the lion's share of these campaign promises that we made are fulfilled. And that's what all the hard work here is in the rooms, all of us negotiating and coming to consensus with one another on the terms of that, why that's so important. We will get all the Republicans together on the consensus, and we will put forward that bill that will check those boxes and make sure we're doing right by the American people. The president's already begun. I mean, I just made a list this morning. Everything he started in the first 7 days, he's already securing our borders, removing dangerous illegal aliens, standing up to terrorists, bringing back the economy, unleashing American energy, putting an end to the DEI and gender ideology madness. That's in 7 days. We're just getting started. And you're going to see so much of this codified in our legislative agenda, and we'll get the appropriations going, we'll get the reconciliation going. It's going to be a very busy first 100 days. So you're all going to have to work as hard as we do. So I'm glad you're here. Last one, Olivia, go ahead. I'm not going to predict the outcome of it. First of all, which tariffs will be enacted and how it will affect prices. We'll have to see. I think you're seeing a measured approach by the president. Tariffs clearly is going to be a part of the policy agenda from the White House. All of that, he's said to us, will be in the executive branch and not the legislative branch, so they'll have unilateral authority over it. But I think he's going to be wise in how he does that. I don't think you'll see across-the-board tariffs in whole countries or whole industries. I don't believe that's what will happen. I think he's going to deal with the unfairness that we see out on the world stage. China, for example, is a terrible trading partner. They abuse the system. They steal our intellectual property. They're now trying to get a leg up on us on AI, as you've seen the last day or so. It's a serious threat to us and to our economy and our security in every way. And so the president takes that seriously, and I think that he will deal with that in an appropriate manner. Look, we're free trade advocates. But as the president often reminds all of us, it has to be free and fair trade, and we simply don't have that with some of the people, allies and adversaries around the world. So President Trump will be the great equalizer on that. We look forward to it. Thank you all for being here. We'll be talking with you next couple of days.
Sorry, can you give us an opinion lastly on Gustavo Petro and what's going to happen with the flights, if they abide or not, if the Colombian government abides or not?
You want to address that? Okay. Well, listen, he did an about-face very quick-like, and that was appropriate. And if he wants to send his own presidential plane to pick up his folks, we welcome that. It saves American taxpayers money. I think that's a great thing. And, I think other foreign leaders should take his cue and send their presidential planes and pick up their folks who don't belong here. We are happy to send them back. So I think it's a good trend. Thank you.